this is Emily. Iannielli, I'm a male to female transgender woman. You'll have to excuse me, but I've been recuperating from having the flu. And I just wanted to try to get my voice back. And it helps when I talk. Usually I don't do much talking at home alone. And I don't have too many visiting friends, so this allows me the opportunity to at least express myself, and I also enjoy talking and, discussing things that are happening in my life. I am trying to find some peace and comfort in my transition from male to female. I'm trying to adapt to my son being away so far. I'm trying to deal with this brutal winter that we're having. We've had more snow again today, about 6 inches, on top of the 2 feet that we had last week. And I'm trying to cope with my depression, feeling isolated, and my not able to work, and my financial struggles. I have a lot on my plate, but I don't think it's any more than anybody else. And I'm concerned for my son, but he seems to be doing good in school. He's making good progress. And my son and I have a wonderful relationship. I was concerned how my transition would affect him, but he's very mature, and he's also very empathetic, since he's autistic and he knows. So, I'm very fortunate, and my son and I have such a wonderful bond. It's inseparable, so we'll get through all of this difficulty. And I'm enjoying relaxing. I need to heal. I'm a little disappointed right now because I was hoping to get the ball rolling with gender reassignment surgery. And I was, reaching out to Dr. Marcy Bowers, who I have tremendous respect for. But unfortunately right now my doctors are not giving me the consent for the surgery, so that's in limbo right now, and I don't know if it's gonna go anywhere. So I have to make the best of it, and hope that things will change in the not too distant future, where they will give me the go-ahead. Right now it's a no-go, so I'm very disappointed about that. But I'm not letting it deter me in my transition from male to female. I'm going full force with the hormones. I'm going to see my doctor in the city at Calanord, Dr. Juliet Woodhoff, and I'm very, very conscientious in taking my estradiol, my 2 milligrams 3 times a day, and my spironolactone, my 100 milligrams twice a day. And I also am taking my antidepressants, so I'm being very good with my medications and my hormone pills. Certainly there are risks in doing HRT, hormone replacement therapy, but for me, I had no choice. It was either do it or die, and I wanted to live, and I wanted to transition. And the only way I could transition and look somewhat feminine was to do HRT, hormone replacement therapy. And I never knew anybody personally who was a male to female transgender woman, but I had done some research, and I also was able to see transgender girls on YouTube, where I learned quite a bit from them sharing their experiences, and it got me into wanting to do videos eventually too on my own channel, chronicling my own transition. I'm pretty new with my transitional journey. I'm only 2.5 years into it. I've only been on female hormones. I think it's now since June. Was it June? It's June or September. I think it's June. Or maybe I started at Callan Lord in June of 2012 and started on the hormones in September. I know it was 3 months from when I started to first go there. And I'm very pleased with the results so far. I've always felt like I was a girl. I always knew in my heart that I was a girl, and that I had to transition. So that was no question for me. I just knew that it was either transition or what other alternative would I have. And I felt very guilty because here I have a son, and certainly I have to be here for him. So I was just perplexed. I didn't know what to do, and I was desperate, and I was looking for answers, and I felt hopeless. And it was things in my life that propelled me to transition. If those things didn't happen, I probably wouldn't be transitioning. But I lost my dad in 2009 in April to suicide, and then my best friend who helped me through that died 2 years later in 2011 at the age of 40, and he left behind a wife and a baby girl, and I was devastated when I went to his wake, and I had to start going to a therapist and share my feelings on what was happening. And I talked about all my struggles, what happened to my dad, and my son with his autism, and my feelings of depression and isolation. And eventually I talked about my transgender struggles, and she started to delve deeper into that and question it. And I was a little reluctant, but after speaking to her more consistently, I had come to realize, which I knew all along, that I was battling with gender dysphoria, and that I had to make a decision on what I was going to do. And I was scared. I was working. I had a mortgage. How did I tell my son and my wife? So I was very confused, and this was a time where I had to do a lot of soul searching, and then I thought about it, and then I looked at what transpired in the loss of my friend, and I just had come to the conclusion that I didn't want to go to my grave never having that chance of living as a female. I knew in my heart that I was a female. I knew it in my soul that I was a female. And I knew it in my spiritual existence that I was a female. My mind, my heart, my soul, my spiritual existence. I knew I was a female. The only thing that wasn't right was my body. And that happened to be male. So I was a male with a female brain. And I couldn't deal with it. And after going for therapy for several months and soul searching and a lot of crying, I had to come to the reality that either I was going to transition or I was going to kill myself. And I didn't want to kill myself. So I decided that I would transition, and that's when I got the ball rolling, and I started going to Calanoid, and started to see my doctor, Dr. Juliet, and eventually she put me on the hormones, and I was going to a therapist, and everything was going well, and eventually I had to come out at work. I was doing electrolysis. I was starting to show signs of the redness on my face, and I was shaving my arms, and people were looking at me a little strange. And you know, I was growing my hair out long, and my supervisor said, "You need a haircut." And I said, "No, I'm not getting a haircut." And she gave me a hard time, and I said, "I'm not getting a haircut." And I felt, look, I have to do something. I have to tell her somehow. So I texted her that I was transgender, and she replied back that we'll talk about it. And you know, I didn't know what to make of it, but I felt better at least that I got it off my chest. You know, I also had come out already to my wife, and with my son I was trying to be very delicate with him and how I was to deal with that issue. But I was very worried because I didn't know what the reaction would be. And then after a week, my supervisor called me into her office and asked me to sit down, and she said, "All right, so what's going on?" And I told her, well, I'm struggling with my gender. I've always known since I was little that I identify differently in my gender identity compared to my sexual characteristics. And she asked me what were my plans. And I said, well, I'm planning to transition. I'm already on hormone replacement therapy, and that I would like to transition on the job when I feel the time is right. And she said, no. She said, you can't. And I said, but I have to. And she said, well, look, we are concerned about how this will affect the other employees, and we just don't want to take that risk. And quite honestly, there are some people with reservations. So, what could I do? I was in a quandary. And I said, look, I don't know what the answer is, but I have to transition. It's something that I need to do. It's a medical necessity. And she said that she would think about it. And then, like a few days later, she and the HR person called me into the conference room, closed the door, and said, listen, we don't want to lose you, but you have to understand that if you're going to transition, you have to do it at a slow pace, and you have to do it with nobody knowing it. And I said, well, I don't know if I can do that because I'm on the hormones, and I don't know how the hormones are going to affect me. This is all new to me. The gender struggle has been constant, but the transitioning itself is all new. So I don't know what to expect. And they said, listen, we will work with you. We'll even have you work from home if necessary. And I said, well, we'll see what can happen, what we can do. And they had originally said no, and then eventually they came around and they said okay, that they would allow me to transition, but they made a stipulation that I do it within a 2 to 3 year period. So I told them I'll do the best I can. And then the accounting firm that I used to work at, who actually got me this job at this client of theirs, told me that they had another opportunity for me to work at a medical office in the city where the management was open to me transitioning on the job. And I was very reluctant. And I said, listen, I have this job. They changed their mind. They're going to let me stay and they'll let me transition, provided I do it according to their terms. And the partner in the CPA firm said, we don't want you to, because it's going to put the client in a adverse position, and we don't want them to feel like they're in an awkward situation. So we want you to go on this interview, and we're sure it's going to work out, and you'll be there working, and you'll have a career for yourself, and you'll be able to transition and live as a female and work, and it's in the city. And after several phone calls back and forth and arranging an interview, they twisted my arm and I went on the interview. And I went in as a guy because I really wasn't sure how to present myself at the time. I never worked as a woman per se, and I was unsure. So I interviewed in a conservative fashion, and I wore a suit and tie. But I made the request if it was possible that I transition on the job as a male to female transgender woman. And the woman who I interviewed with said, that's not a problem, that's fine. And within a day of the interview, she emailed me and said, you got the job. And about a week elapsed, and she told me the date that I would start, which was I had 3 weeks to settle all my affairs with my soon-to-be former employer and pave my way to the new job. So, within a week of me starting the new job, with no time off, literally, I had received an email, and the practice manager said, so how are you going to present? And I said, well, I would prefer to present as a female, as Emily. And she replied back, well, I'm happy for you, and certainly we will accommodate you. So I felt somewhat happier and much more relieved that I was going to actually have a job and I was going to be able to work and to be a female on the job and be recognized as Emily, even though I didn't have a formal legal name change. All my paperwork would be in my male name, but I would be addressed in my female name and with female pronouns. The problem was that the owner was a very old, stubborn man